And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Night Q&A. I'm Clay, joined by Miss E. Train.
That would be me.
Good to see y'all. Hey, Melissa, how you doing? Jane, good to see you both.
What's going on,
Hope y'all
everybody?
had a good early start to the week. It has been a hectic one. Like I said before, my months of January and February have been just absolutely jacked, and things will settle down a little bit after the first week in March. So
I think both of
looking
ours
forward to
have
that.
been.
Do what?
I think both of ours have been.
Yeah, you've had the move and everything going on. So I'm about to head to Prague for a week, and
Yay.
yeah, it's business. It's not pleasure, but um,
Well, tell Prague I said hi.
yeah, it's a beautiful old Eastern European city. It's the only major city in Europe that was not leveled by the Germans or Allied bombing. The Germans never really occupied it heavy, fortified it, attacked it, and neither did the Allies or the Russians. So it still, has kind of maintained its older structure and nature without a lot of rebuilding. So
And when I was there
it's a
20
beautiful
years ago,
city.
it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is a beautiful area. I love the
Mhm.
whole of Eastern Europe. So, well, tonight is your night. It's Tuesday night Q&A. So we take, questions, comments, whatever from y'all, anything you've got. It's pretty open format. Do have a couple things to talk about, to help fill in some of the gaps or time. But if you've got some questions or comments, let us know. E-Train is monitoring the other streams from X and Rumble, where we're also broadcasting live. If you have any questions, just type them in, and E-Train will feed them
Relay
back
them.
out. Yeah,
Hmm.
we'll relay them because they don't relay directly into StreamYard.
They used to.
Used to long ago, far away,
Yeah.
before technology hit.
Yeah.
Walking with Macho while we're watching.
Nice. Hey, Macho.
We'll
Mucho
give
Macho.
give Macho a hug for us.
It must be getting cold because I know it's going to be cold here tomorrow. Here
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
sunny
we're supposed to
South.
get down to like 25 tomorrow night, which is pretty chilly for us. Uh, Watching the stars is beautiful. The sky is totally clear. Yeah,
That's
that's a pretty
awesome.
nice trade off.
Hmm.
That's a pretty nice trade off. That's kind of a beautiful thing about the cold. It clears out the humidity, and the skies really clear up, particularly if you're out in the country and there's no
Light pollution.
light pollution. Couldn't think of the term.
That's why you got me here.
Yeah, I miss that. There's so
Hmm.
much is built up and grown up around here. It's hard to see the stars.
Squitches, Macho.
And same to Green Bean.
Yes. It is pitch black dark there. When it is dark, it is dark. There is no doubt.
But I like that. I do.
Ah, it is. It is. See if I can rearrange this. It's a cow in a chair because why not? It was. I got it on Amazon. It was $8, and I was like, "It's so cute," and I like it. So, yeah,
It makes a somewhat apropos backdrop.
it does. If I need to figure out how to make it all work together, but should probably lower it a bit. But I've got one of a Highland cow on the toilet behind my toilet, reading the newspaper. So that's kind of cool. I've
Um,
kind of gotten into the farmy thing.
yeah, the farmy thing is
Right on the chair.
The farmy thing is kind of cool. We are a big fan of farmers, homesteading,
Mm-hmm.
um, both personally, professionally, academically, whatever. Uh, I will probably actually head that way myself in another year or two. So, looking forward to it.
You're coming here?
Well, probably up the mountains
Oh.
by
Aw.
looking for some land where I can sit on my back porch, watch the sunset over the valley below, have some chickens, some I don't know about cows. I just wonder about how many animals I want because I want to be able to travel. And if I have animals,
Here we
that might
go.
be a little difficult. Yeah. Particularly
Mm-hmm.
animals that need care or attention every day or regularly. So
Yes,
that
I now have got Mahoney. She is sitting over here on this ginormous beanbag chair. Like when I say it's huge, like it's freaking huge. Yeah. She's she's hanging out in the office.
Clay, swing by my house so I can get you all prepared. Is that the one in Tennessee or the one in Pennsylvania? Um,
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. I've actually got some good friends up in Pennsylvania, Oil City. I don't know how far away that is from you, but they moved up there. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Hadn't seen them since. And
Are they still alive?
oh yeah,
Okay.
and they wanted me to come up and say, "Hey," so I've thought about doing that. Oil
Not even
City
close.
is not even close. So yeah, I'm thinking this summer of just getting in my truck and just packing it up with some camping gear and then heading out west
Like like last summer?
like I wanted to last summer. There were a couple of interruptions, personal
Yes.
problems that came up that were more important I had to attend
True.
to, but um,
But you were on your way.
I was on my way, and it'll take a month or 2 months because I'll just be stopping along the way and looking at the sites. There are a couple states like Kansas and Oklahoma. I might just keep on going, but most of the other states might have some sites or whatever to stop and spend a few days. So it'll take me a little while. Jane, you can camp in my backyard. No one will bother you back there, and it's pitch black dark. My kind of
No
place.
doubt. You can actually get on the other side of the little hill and you won't even know anybody else is there.
I do need to see it. You need to go up there and shoot another one of those solar
I
videos too.
know. I know, I know, I know. Let me get everything calmed down here.
With the zoo.
The zoo. Yeah. Now it's 2 cats, 3 dogs. Yeah, it's a lot going on right now. All
It
the
is.
aminals.
And a future goat in the works.
Yes, Calliope. Mhm.
How is Calliope doing?
She's good.
Any
She's
new
she's
pictures?
she's goading. No, I did talk to her dad Valentine's Day, and he gave her a kiss for me, so
I still don't know what you're going to do with a goat, but anyway, good luck with the goating.
love it.
Love
Love
it.
on the goat.
I have some other homesteading stuff I can go over with you guys too. We need to have another show.
We keep saying we're gonna do, like, a series on that, and we have yet to do it.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just go ahead and maybe take next Tuesday and
Okay.
focus on homesteading.
And what's the date? The 20 something?
25th.
Okay. Because I know Saturday I have a dinner to go to. I know you're gonna be out of town,
Yeah.
so we will not be doing a Saturday.
We'll do this coming Saturday, but Saturday a week.
I thought the 22nd you were gonna be in CFA.
No. Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yes, I forgot. I have a student competition team that I'm working with, and we made it to the Final Four in the state.
I
So
won't tell
we
him
have got
that you forgot about him.
well, I've been with them every night. I was there with them last night till about 9, and then tomorrow night we'll do it again after, from probably 5:30 to 9:30, and probably Thursday, and then some more nights. But on the 22nd, I'll be at the competition, and then on March the 1st, I'll be in Prague.
And I'll
So
be
it'll
in
be
Florida.
I'll be a couple of Saturdays out. Actually flying back on the 8th, so I won't be able to do one then either. I don't get back in till night on the
That next
Saturday
Saturday?
the 8th. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Because I know Tuesday I'll still be in Florida,
yeah, on Tuesday the 4th, I'll be out too.
or
I'll
I'll
be
be
in Prague.
coming back that day.
So, no show on the 1st, 4th, and I don't know on the 8th if you wanna do something. You and Jane maybe can do something.
Okay.
Y'all
We'll see
can
if she's I
talk
know
about
she's
that,
got
think about that, yeah.
she said Tuesday she's got her wilderness first responder training. Okay. And then oh, I know. There's gonna be a little time. We're not gonna be around. I mean, we're still here. There's a few things going on. Put Chunk
Yeah.
in charge. Oh my lord.
Chunk would be entertaining. He could command the show. He
He'd
is
be
such a
showing you all of his balls,
he's such a
all of his little balls.
big personality and such a little body. He
Mhm.
really is. He's just cute as hell.
He's crazy
Uh,
funny.
he is. Um, so we'll try to figure out the schedule and post it ahead of time so everybody knows.
I wish I could, and I would just turn it on and get it online during the time. Because God knows I've got enough dogs and cats around here.
Yeah.
Um, I've got somebody coming to stay with them while I'm out of town. Mm, So I wish I could.
All right. Let's talk about some of the stuff. It's been
Stuffs.
interesting week. We talked Saturday night, mentioned there were some things didn't quite get to cover that I thought were of modest interest, significant interest. And I mentioned, I think briefly, what I call the Mar-a-Lago Accords. It's kind of the brain trust at Mar-a-Lago before Trump assumed office, talking about potential ideas and strategies. And we've seen the initial implementation of some of them.
Hmm.
The implementation of tariffs as leverage, trying to get more balanced trade from other nations. Trump basically, past few days, has announced a series of reciprocal trades. So we're going to put tariffs on everything they put tariffs on American products entering their country. So if they have tariffs, we're going to have tariffs. If they reduce them, we'll reduce them. So this series of tariffs is really a negotiation tool. He has talked about more permanent tariffs as a funding mechanism to replace income taxes, which is really, to me, kind of a whole different idea. Now, Trump used tariffs as leverage during his first term. And, as we talked about, inflation actually dropped in the following year. It was 2.1% the year before he took office, Obama's last year. And then his first year, it was 1.9. His second year, when the tariffs were in place, 1.7. So it actually dropped a little bit with the tariffs. The tariffs were not inflationary and several reasons for that is one, most of the tariffs were on Chinese products, and China devalued their currency, the yuan. So they basically ate the cost of the tariffs by devaluing their currency.
Mhm.
Secondly, there's a lot of substitutes available for some of these products. So if the price goes up, some people just buy other stuff or they don't buy it. They decide they don't need it. So there's a lot of little factors at play in whether or not tariffs actually contribute to inflation. Now, if Trump puts tariffs on products across the board, like a 25% tariff on everything imported into the US, imports are about, I see different numbers, 15 to 20% of GDP. So if
Jane,
they're 20,
sorry,
pardon?
Jane.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. I'm all for getting rid of the IRS and moving to the ERS. Yeah, I think ultimately we would be far better off. China does play with their currency all the time, but they're already having problems and struggles in their economy. Now, they've lost tons of jobs. A lot of the people working aren't getting paid. There's starting to be more dissent and issues at home. So they've got some serious problems. Devaluing their currency would not help that, but they may not have a choice because they can't afford to lose the business. They
Mhm.
need the business. They can't afford to lose more companies, more industry, which has obviously fled China over since Trump's first term. The tariffs did one thing. They caused a lot of manufacturing to move out of China. A lot of it moved into India, other places in Indonesia, whatever, but it was out of China. Saw where yesterday the Nissan CEO said if Trump puts tariffs on imports of Mexican cars, instead of building the plant in Mexico, they'll build it in the U.S. So, I mean, that's kind of a boom there for Trump's suggestion that the tariffs will increase American jobs. There
Fair
will be
enough.
some chaos. There will be some confusion if all this happens. But the question is, will we be better off in 2 years? If Trump puts a 25% tariff on all products coming into the US to replace income taxes, we will have a little inflation. If it's 20% of the economy and people don't substitute, if they kept buying that 20%, then you would see prices increase 3 or 4% at a kind of a one-time bump. Your total cost out of $100 would now cost you $103 for whatever you buy a month. The flip side is your taxes, which are 15 to 20% of your income. Well, let me drop that down. 10 to 15% for your income for the average family would go to zero. So your income would increase by 10%, your expenses would increase by 3. So out of every $100, you would now have 110. Well, so out of that $100, some of it you save. You don't buy foreign products. So if you save 10, 15, 20%, you use it on non-imported products, then your total change in cost would be $2-3 for every 110, sorry. So that's a
And if
pretty good trade-off.
manufacturing, yeah, and if manufacturing starts moving back into the United States,
You'll have more Americans
more
with
jobs,
jobs.
more money, more American products.
Yep. So net, you would end up in a far better position. So yeah, that's a trade-off I would be willing to make. I think it would be great for the economy in terms of spurring economic growth and better job opportunities. There's some things we're going to talk about as far as jobs uh, a little later in terms of what's going on in the economy in general. But um, if Trump does move to tariffs as a replacement for income tax, that'll be a time to have a real serious discussion on the net impact. You'll have a lot of people against it, but they're just looking at, hey, it'll cause inflation to go up. Well, how much will that really impact you every month? And what are some of the offsetting factors like increasing your take home pay? So that's the real key is net, are you going to be better off? And most everybody would answer that in the affirmative. Second idea was a sovereign wealth fund. You've heard people talk about establishing a Bitcoin reserve. We've also seen some executive orders issued to try to monetize U.S. assets, being they gold, land, etc. Maybe Bitcoin, eventually Bitcoin. There's also been talk about revaluing gold that the Treasury holds. They carry it on the books at $42. Right now, the price is $2,900 plus, almost $3,000 an ounce. Some people argue that would unlock a lot more spending, borrowing power. I'm a little hesitant on that. It's just an accounting number. It doesn't
We know
really
your thoughts on
change.
gold.
Huh?
We know your thoughts on gold.
Yeah, I think gold right now is a good investment.
Yeah.
Um, I think Bitcoin's a good investment. But in terms of, relating it to money supply, I'm a little bit more hesitant in that regard. The facts are is that the DOJ apparently holds about 207,000 Bitcoin, about $12 billion from criminal seizures that could likely be moved to this fund. I'm not sure how much more they would buy. And in terms of, people think of traditional sovereign funds like Norway's or UAE's being funded with income from the sale of oil or natural resources. This obviously would be a different fund. This would be more like a leveraged hedge fund that to use to try to borrow against or maybe pay off future debts, something along that, rather than just developing cash every year to go into the national treasury.
How would okay? I get they seize Bitcoin from whatever criminal activities, whatever. How do they transfer that? I mean, I guess the DOJ owns it now. It's in their, I know it's in their possession,
They have
but do they
seized it.
actually, they
It's
seized it,
property
but
of the U.S. Yeah.
so they're just letting it kind of hang out,
Yep.
but not using it for anything. I mean, they can't, or can they?
It's just seized
Actually,
assets. It would just be reclassified to a national reserve and could then be used to pay off future debts. Some people have suggested if you, refinance the debt. We talked about, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. So let me kind of hold that thought on refinancing the debt. But some people talked about holding the reserve, putting Bitcoin in it, and then 10, 20, 30 years, you could use it to pay off a chunk of the debt, something like that.
hmm
Jane has a question. How much gold do we think is actually left in Fort Knox? A lot of people, a lot of people think there's very little or no gold in Fort Knox. I saw a U.S. senator talking about he had requested permission to go to Fort Knox and view the gold and was
hmm
refused, which is
Really,
terribly interesting to me.
especially if there's none there.
Well, a lot of people think, oh, that's evidence that there's none there. I'm kind of thinking that there's more there than what there ought to be. For example, Iraq. Saddam
Yeah.
had tons of gold.
Hmm.
Don't really know what happened to that gold.
Where'd it go?
So if yeah, where'd it go? So if they let and audit the gold in Fort Knox and there ends up being more than there's supposed to be, then the US government has a lot to explain.
You got some splaining to do.
So
Lucy.
yeah, I'm just taking, I don't know. I'm just taking the opposite view here just for the fun of it. So if they're, letting that gold be audited is only a lose-lose proposition for the government. If it's
Hmm.
what's supposed to be in there, they don't get any credit for that. Nobody's going to apologize. If it's too little, they're in trouble. If it's too much, they're in trouble.
Hmm.
They got to spend some information there. So,
Well, it
I'm kind
seems
of
like they've been doing that for a bit with all this Doge stuff coming out.
yeah,
Oof.
true. And the half the politicians in DC are just outraged with all the Doge stuff. So that kind of takes, you don't see the news media cheering it. You don't
I
see the
think,
politicians in
yeah,
DC cheering it.
I think thou doth protest too much.
Yeah, I believe there's honestly some of that going on, but you would
Mhm.
think if you had an administration take office and they were rooting out fraud and corruption and waste, that's something everybody could kind of get behind and cheer.
Yes, but it has been
It's
the
the most
exact opposite.
it is the most divisive thing I have ever seen in DC. People are
Oh my
getting
god. They're
hostile.
getting very angry about the whole thing, like, "How dare you take away, tourism in Egypt? You
Yeah.
must want the American people to suffer." I'm like, "I don't remember hearing any American get behind wanting more people to tour around Egypt." Maybe there are people I don't know about,
Yeah.
but, if you ask any plain old American, I'm I mean, and there's not one single on the other side that has even questioned any of it. They
Not
just
one.
talk about how asinine it is that we're even talking about it. It's like, "Wait a
Yeah.
minute, you gotta be
How
kidding
it's
me."
unconstitutional.
Oh, yes, that's my favorite one. Mhm.
They want, who was the senator? It wasn't Elizabeth Warren. It wasn't Maxine Waters, but
You
one
talking about House
noted
or
liberal
Senate?
Senate, one noted senator said that the way it ought to be done is Doge. If they discover something, they ought to bring it in secret to a committee, a Senate House joint committee, and then let the committee decide what to do with it. And I think we all know
No.
how effective a committee is in getting things done and changed and cleaned out, whatever.
Well,
Um,
they're saying that, the purse, stops with Congress. Well, they have the purse strings. It's like, "Wait, but it's our money."
it
And
is,
you
but
can't just do whatever you want with it.
the thing is, the fraud wasn't specified by Congress. The waste wasn't specified by Congress. The corruption wasn't specified. It wasn't a line item by Congress. The funds that the
Apparently, some of them think it
president
was.
the funds the president's Doge committee is finding are discretionary funds. Like Congress appropriated $50 billion to U.S. aid. Well, the bureaucrats in U.S. aid decided how to spend it. That's where we got some of these ridiculous spending projects from. It's not that Congress specified the money to go here. The administration can't touch that. They can
But
find
why are
waste and
they
fraud in there, but they can't
right?
stop spending on a specified project. But where there is discretionary spending, the discretion left up to the administration. They have every legal right, every constitutional right under Article 2 to control and affect change in that spending.
What I don't understand is the left getting so upset. Like, I mean, I kind of thought all the BS stupid fighting was kind of over, at least for a
Nope,
minute.
just getting
And
worse.
it is worse now than the end of last year. I mean, I'm
Well,
just like, why are they so objectionable to this? Like,
it's
are they
because
taking
they're
money out of their own pockets?
yeah, it's taking money out of their own pockets and disrupting their power base. Being able to pass out money is power. It buys you influence, it buys you votes. And if that money is taken away, you lose your power, you lose your influence. That's what makes people so mad.
Okay, so back to what you said before, if they aren't actually if Congress isn't actually able to, as far as discretion or anything else, say where the money goes, then why are they so upset about it? What is it about the left that is just like they are freaking out?
Losing their power, losing their control, losing their influence. Some of them are losing their paychecks. Um,
Help me understand that
Two
one.
of the judges that ruled against Trump,
Yeah, they walked out,
they
right?
either were directly like they were on a agency that was receiving money, or their spouse was. So
Oh,
both of
fuck's
those
sake.
judges were directly receiving compensation from these programs that were being cut. That's a conflict of interest. They had no business, zero business ruling on that issue. That is a
No.
direct conflict of interest.
And they say
And
Elon
so
has a conflict of interest. It's like, what?
there's talk now in the Senate of actually impeaching those judges. So that's going to get started. There's already been a couple bills filed, and there's a very good chance they may be impeached, removed from
Good.
office. So we'll see if that possibly encourages a little bit fairer judiciary.
Can you even fathom or estimate how much money that you think over the past 50 years has just been of US taxpayer money has just been blown to pay people off for political gain for I mean, can you even fathom the amount?
Yeah, no, I was looking at some things a little earlier. Actually, was going to talk about it later in the show.
Sorry.
Um,
Didn't know.
no, it's all right. Um, Doge announced today or yesterday. I can't. They're doing so much. I can't keep up with it. But they announced an identification code
Mhm.
for
Oh, I
payments
saw
in
that.
the U.S. Treasury system
Mhm.
was an optional field. So when somebody at the Treasury is cutting a check, there's a code for who it's going to and the reason
It was
for the payment.
right.
Well, that was in the payment processing system. That was an optional entry, so they didn't have to enter it. And
It
Doge
was like a
found and
TAS
announced,
code.
huh?
TAS, I think it was
Yes, the
called
TS code.
TAS. Mhm.
And Doge was found that $4.7 trillion in payments over the last 4 years, 4.7 trillion did not have a code attached to it. So that
And
makes
no
it
explanation.
extremely difficult to trace those payments. 4.7 trillion. That's 2.6 times the 2024 US deficit. So the
But that
US,
is what,
basically the US can't track $4.7 trillion in payments.
1/8 of our in the past 4 years, 1/8 of our debt? Am I or 1/9 of our debt?
Yeah, 1/8.
1/8.
Um, we also found out this week that Medicare sent $2.7 trillion overseas to people that weren't eligible. The Pentagon lost $2.5 trillion. Social Security sends $100 billion a year to people with no identity. You know, the stupidity in spending is just becoming legendary. You had Department of Ed spending $50 billion a year to make your kids gay, trans, diverse, or just hate the country in general. USAID spent $50 million, $50 million to advocate diversity in Burma. And you got to understand the military junta in Burma is committing genocide. So were they concerned that the people committing genocide were not being diverse enough in their genocide? They're going to teach people committing genocide to be more diverse in their selection of victims? I don't know. It's nothing but a damn payoff.
One of my favorites was the fish farm in the middle of the desert. Did you hear about that one?
Yeah.
And they don't eat fish, and they will not eat fish, and they don't want it.
Legendary.
It's like, good God.
Yeah, Health and Human Services spent $22 billion on cars and homes for illegal immigrants. The list just goes on. Jane had a comment. Let's see.
There's one before this. Hang on.
There hasn't been an audit since the 70s. More gold. Oh, well, we haven't had an audit. Nothing to see here. Yeah, I don't know if there's more or if there's less or if there's the correct amount. I'm just, I just remember a lot of pictures, for example, in Iraq, you'll see a troop standing by mounds of gold.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I doubt we gave that up somewhere or just left it out in the desert. And what would we do with it?
How many millions of dollars or billions of equipment did we leave behind in Afghanistan? I don't know, man.
A bunch.
Mm-hmm.
There are government offices still running on Windows 95 and Windows 98. Hell, Social Security is running on COBOL, programming from the 60s.
Yep.
So there just needs to be massive upgrades in technology. And I think, one reason there hadn't, it isn't because the government doesn't have money or because the government's cheap. It's because it'll be harder to hide the grift.
Yep.
These people have a good system built up. They don't want to lose it.
I bet your mom did too.
That would be bittersweet to see it done away with. But it's time.
Yeah.
It's time.
I mean, it's nutty.
Yeah. Back to the Mar-a-Lago Accords.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. This is all, part of the deal. The third main area would be restructuring global security. Basically, end of free U.S. protection for NATO, for allies. We spend billions of dollars a year providing significant troops, training funds for NATO. Their fair share. So Trump is adamant that they must pay 5% of their GDP and pay the USA for security-backed taxes, which is an interesting notion that they're not going to go for that. But most everything outrageous he says, you have to remember, it's a start of a negotiating position.
Yeah, it's a tactic.
Trump loves the art of the deal. He loves negotiating. So he always takes a very almost outlandish position to initiate the conversation, and then we'll negotiate from there.
And then he likes the reaction to see where they are, how serious they are, what their stance is.
He's a good judge of people in that area. And from their reaction, he can tell whether or not he has them cornered, badgered, or whether or not they've really got something to offer. So it is a tell for him to see the strength or weakness of his counterpart.
Yeah, it's like playing poker for him.
Yeah, he's a good negotiator. So that would be interesting. Now, the most interesting thing to me out of the whole Mar-a-Lago sessions was the debt swap plan. I think I alluded to this briefly on Saturday, where he's suggesting that countries holding U.S. treasuries, China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, some in Europe, must exchange those treasury bonds for 100-year zero coupon bonds. Now, a zero coupon bond is a bond that you buy at a discount. It doesn't pay a separate interest payment, but you buy it at a low price and it matures at a higher price. So that difference is the interest. It accrues over time. So there's no separate cash flow, no separate interest payment made. Right now we're spending, 1.4, $1.6 trillion on interest out of our $6 trillion budget. And the rate is only going higher. So if he could convince 50, 60, 70% of the outstanding treasury issues to be swapped for 100-year zero coupon bonds, that would absolutely slash our interest cost. That would be huge. The flip side is, in 100 years, we obviously have to pay back the bonds. But if we're able to balance the budget, if we get income taxes reduced or zeroed, I really think the economy is going to grow outrageously fast compared to what it has done. It'll be great for the economy. So if the economy improves, overall economy improves, government revenues will increase. We'll be able to buy back some of those zeros before they mature, further reducing the debt. And it's an interesting idea. I don't know all the possible ramifications. I've been trying to consider it some. Now, for countries that own treasury debt, would they want to swap them out for zeros? You've got to have a carrot with a stick. The carrot would be, if they needed liquidity, they could use them for repo at the Federal Reserve. That would provide liquidity and yield some, interest payments to the Fed. They would receive favored nation trading status. Their tariffs would be reduced. If they refuse, their tariffs would be higher. You could have, U.S. military pullbacks, all sorts of different little carrot and stick things. So that to me is the boldest idea out of the bunch that I heard. It is the one that intrigues me the most. Like I say, I'm not sure of absolutely all the ramifications, still kind of thinking it through, looking for other information. It's still a work in progress. That is not a firm offer. That exact course has not been decided on, but that was one of the things thrown up at Mar-a-Lago as a potential idea. And I like discussing weird and different ideas. That to me is a sign of intelligence. People just throwing things out, and every once in a while you come up with something, you go, that's not a bad idea. That may work. And if it does work out, it'll be great. So that's interesting. So the potential outcomes for the U.S., the potential risk, if successful, we reduce the debt burden, which is a plus. We boost domestic industry, which is a plus. Forces allies to pay for their own security. It lowers our security cost, which is a plus. Gold and Bitcoin rise as stores of value. The dollar weakens some. Interest rates drop some, making U.S. exports more competitive. Now, if it's rejected in mass, if those ideas aren't able to be brought to fruition, you can probably expect trade wars, fractured alliances, probably rising inflation. Be some volatility in the bond markets, higher interest rates. So those are kind of like the two extremes. Actually, I think the two extremes are more likely than some middle, or at least more leaning toward the positive extreme. You've also got the tax reduction. You've got the drop in government expense. It looks like Doge is going to be able to hit $1 trillion in savings. They're finding $4 billion a day in savings. And some of the things they find aren't actually savings. They're just where money was lost or not accounted for. They won't be able to recover it. It's gone, but can keep it from happening again. That's a positive. So if we can get the budget trimmed some, if we can get the interest cost trimmed some, if we can get the economy growing actively, strongly again, we'll work our way out of this mess. That's the road ahead. That's the path. If things, if those things don't fall in place, then we're in trouble. If nothing changed from a month ago, we're in trouble. Interest rates are going to rise. The economy is softening. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Has been softening for a while. Markets are overpriced, both the real estate, stock market, the commercial real estate market's been getting hammered. So if all that continues, we're headed for some real difficult times. Something dramatic, positive dramatic needs to happen. So we'll see. If things work out, if it's successful, this could be like a new Bretton Woods agreement. It would reset the status quo and would really be a resulting economic strategy that would shift global dynamics in a way we've not seen in decades. Power has been kind of drifting away from America, and there's been increased corruption and, contempt in a lot of places. This feels to me, my opinion, like kind of an upending of the economic and political order, particularly political order. A lot of the old power bases are being absolutely destroyed. We'll see what replaces them, but I doubt it would be any worse. If Trump is able to couple this with major tax cuts for the middle class and maintain strong populist support, then all of these ideas should be taken seriously. He can get them through. It's an intriguing set of ideas, which I think most Americans would be in favor of. So the market, I've alluded to the market being a little weird, a little different. This week we saw the S&P 500 hit an all-time high, and on the same day, the fear index moved from neutral into fear territory. So this is kind of interesting. I was talking about the interest expense, interest rates increasing this year. Give you an example. And we talked about how our beloved former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen really kind of screwed up the duration curve of U.S. Treasury. She moved a lot of the debt into the short end. Well, rates were lower, but they're more volatile, and rates have gone from 0.2% to 4%, so an increase of 20 times. And to give you an example, the U.S. had a $66 billion 10-year bond come due last Friday. it had a 2% coupon. Well, it's going to be replaced with another $66 billion 10-year bond, but this time with a 4.55% coupon. So that refinancing that one bond will cost us an extra $1.6, $1.7 billion a year in interest. Just that one bond. And that's just a fraction of the debt that's going to have to be refinanced this year. Over somewhere around $10 trillion of our $36 trillion debt will be refinanced this year, plus $2 trillion in new debt, plus $1 trillion in replacing the cash reserves that were spent by the prior administration. So $13 trillion in new debt will be issued this year, which normally we have $3 or $4 trillion in debt issued. 4 or 5 times the supply of debt issued by the Treasury. And there's not that much demand for it. So that means interest rates have to go up to increase to attract new buyers into the market. Interest rates are going up. We are just beginning now to pay the price for a decade of the low interest rates, ZIRP. And it's going to cost taxpayers money, a bunch of money.
ZIRP.
And Yellen cramming all of the debt on the short end because she didn't want to refinance it at low rates in 2021, 22 when rates were really low. That's when she should have extended it, but she still kept it all on the short end and kept pulling longer maturing debt and refinancing it on the short end. So that's where you get $10 trillion needing to be refinanced this year alone, 10 out of 36. That's nearly, 1/3, 30%.
Sorry, guys. I had to go find me a sweater. I'd already packed them all up because I figured I was done with cold weather, but apparently I was wrong. And of course, I don't let the temperature in the house get above 66 degrees. So I was getting a little chilly. So I had to go rummage up a sweater out of a box of all the boxes I got going on right now.
That's funny.
Oh, I know. Roommate was like, I can turn it. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. I can put on more clothes.
You could just turn it up, and he would
No.
probably be more comfortable.
Yes. I think he's in his man cave with 2 blankets on him right now.
Menopausal women.
I know, right? Or pain
It's
in the
a
ass.
thing.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Jeff. What's going on, man?
How you doing, Jeff? Good to see you, man. In Oil City, I've got a friend up in Oil City, and Jane was. We were talking about doing some stuff on homesteading, which is a big interest of Jane's, and she invited me up, and I said, well, I might go visit some friends in Oil City. So that was the Oil City discussion. Also, you may want to note the Japanese PPI, their producer price index, their year-over-year actual rate came in at 4.2% this week. The forecast was 4. The previous was 3.8. So inflation is still rising somewhat dramatically in Japan. So long story short, that means the BOE is probably going to have to hike rates again, which puts the Japanese government under some real duress because they have so much debt. They have about, I don't know, on a per capita basis, maybe 3, maybe 4 times the debt we do.
Really?
Our debt is about 130, 135% of GDP. Theirs is 240, 250% of GDP. So when their interest rates go up, it takes a chunk out of their government spending.
Junk.
A chunk. So, and if they hike their rates, you'll see a lot more money leave American markets, go into Japanese markets. A lot of domestic Japanese money will no longer, will be pulled back home rather than in foreign markets. So that could have a serious impact here. Lower the demand for Treasury securities, cause our rates to go even higher. Stock market would probably take it on the chin. So you remember the impact last August of the yen carry trade unwinding. So you'd see a little bit more of that, even though probably not to that degree, but it would not be a good thing for anybody. But sooner or later, the stupid Japanese financing is going to hurt.
So you may have covered this while I was digging out a sweater. The billions of dollars spent in the last 2 months, or the month and a half previous to the new administration taking over. What is the benefit to the old administration?
In spending money we didn't have?
Billions and billions of it, yes. Like 20 billion just EPA.
Well, they were spending out of cash reserves because they didn't, in borrowing. The last quarter.
When you say cash reserves, we don't have cash reserves, do we?
Yeah, we did. We had 1.6 trillion. They've spent it down to about 400 billion. So they spent over $1 trillion in cash reserves that Trump left them when they took office.
I'm about to have a cat fight. Excuse me.
Oh, she's serious. 2 cats there. Well, I was going to say the last quarter of 24, the previous administration borrowed $846 billion. If you annualize that, that's an annual deficit of $3.4 trillion, not $2 trillion. So they were spending everything they could and borrowing more than they should. So they really kind of left a bit of a mess, let me say, for the new incoming Treasury Secretary. A lot of issues he's got to deal with all at once. Nothing's easy in D.C. Nothing is easy in D.C. So, bottom line, looking at the weird market we've got that's being constructed, to me, there's really only one trade right now. It's basically to try to own hard money like gold or Bitcoin. If you're more risk adverse, probably lean more toward gold. If you're less adverse, probably Bitcoin. And keep in mind, Bitcoin and gold are no longer substitutes. They are complements. So, a little of both maybe. But right now, it's hard seeing if interest rates rise, the value of bonds are going to drop. If interest rates, sooner or later, the market is by most metrics is overpriced. Now I've been saying that for a little while, so take it with a grain of salt. But the market's overvalued. And you see some signs of people starting to plan for that, like the gold buying. I don't know how many of y'all really track gold, but gold buying, physical gold buying, has gone just apocalyptic. Gold inventories in the largest 3 COMEX gold vaults have surged, just blown up, as you can see in this graph. I mean, this is going straight vertical. have surged by about 15 million ounces in 2 months. Gold is flowing out of London into New York.
Why?
It's about a 115% increase in 1 month.
Why?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Couple different theories, don't know anything for certain. So, I've talked about how banks are struggling. Commercial real estate loans have been collapsing. Now, residential real estate's, going in the crapper. Auto loans are at pandemic highs in terms of defaults. So the paper that banks hold, almost every sector is hurting.
Hey, baby.
And sooner or later, banks are going to have some issues. So are people buying the gold to try to protect or defend against those issues? That's one possible explanation. Hopefully the possibility of World War III is declining. So that's no longer a big incentive to hold gold. Inflation is picking up, but it doesn't look like double digits, and interest rates are going to rise anyway. Yeah, a lot of people are losing their jobs. Trump so far looks like he's going to lay off 200,000 or 300,000 people. White collar jobs, I'll talk about that in a minute, are dropping. Full-time jobs are dropping. So demand will probably soften. So I don't really expect inflation to ramp up significantly. It'll increase some, but we're probably looking more at a deflationary economy for a little while. So
Jane.
Why gold?
Jane.
I'm getting there.
Oh.
I've got to click and get rid of stuff on the screen. Sorry. Still believe lead's a better investment. When the shit hits the fan, you can take whatever you want when you have the most lead. I was just telling that to class, in class today. What's the most valuable resource you can own when times get hard? And that would be lead, preferably in the form of fast-moving little pills. That'll be the real valuable commodity. People will be. I saw a study by the CIA who evaluated the prospect of debilitating the U.S. economy. And it would take basically 6 or 9 EMPs, well-placed EMPs. And you could basically cut off electricity to the entire U.S. for at least 6 months or a year. And it probably would be longer because we no longer manufacture transformers in this country. They're all made in China. So how long would it take to start up transformer manufacturing? And how long would it take to produce them and replace all the ones in the country? So you're looking at least a year.
And do you think China's really willing to help us do that? I don't think so.
They'll probably be the ones doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be at least a year with no food and no water provided by government services, because there'll be no electricity to run the pumps, to provide gas, transportation, produce products, et cetera, et cetera. So the CIA estimates that 90% of Americans would die in that scenario. It would be that severe. And once people start dying, once mamas have hungry babies to feed, they're going to be doing anything and everything they can for food and water. So, when somebody says lead is the best investment, take that with, some due respect. Mm-hmm. And if things, got that bad, then yes, that would be true. You have to ask yourself, what are the chances of that happening? And then ask yourself, is that a risk I can afford to take? Or should I learn to provide for myself? Should I learn how to forage? Should I learn how to fish? Should I learn how to purify water, seawater, creek water, whatever? Should I be able to produce? Should I learn how to produce my own water? Those are skills that hopefully you never need. But if you do, there'll be no substitute and there'll be no quick time to learn. So that's one reason why we focus on some of these quote unquote homesteading skills, issues, and things on occasion. Just
So I'm
cause
glad I have a well.
Yeah, we just think everybody ought to be able to take care of themselves in an emergency if they need to. Even during Katrina, those people didn't have water for weeks. Now, the surrounding areas weren't as damaged, so they were able to import and bring in trucks. People would load up cars with bottles of water, go down and sell it. So they were able to get by. But what if that catastrophe was spread on a little bit bigger regional basis? Could you get by for 2 weeks, a month without food and water at the grocery store or being able to turn on your faucet and have water? That's the big question. So,
well, I don't know if you can hear it, a Mahoney motor.
Yeah. I see you prevented the cat fight.
I did. I rescued the kitty. I know. Yep. Jane says, bring it on. I wouldn't even notice. And neither would most of her neighbors. Yeah. I mean, like I said, got a well, got a way to power it. If there is no power, that's water.
And that's money. That's gold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, if people know that, they're going to be attracted to that area.
That's why I have lots of lead.
Yeah. So, but that's, there's maybe, what are the odds of that happening? 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1, 10,000 to 1, 1,000,000 to 1? I don't know. Pick whatever odds you want. The question is, if it happens, can you afford to be completely unprepared?
So, Jane, I could drag my tiny house into the woods and not even care what's happening in the rest of the world. I hear you.
That's a secure position to be in. That gives a certain peace. And so, we just want to encourage people to have the ability to be self-sufficient. Because, we love you guys. We are, we talk about the family. And we are, a little bit of a family on this show, a bit of a family. We love you guys and have known some of you for several years. And it's a cool thing. And we want everybody to be safe and happy. So that's kind of what we encourage. We're not trying to be doomsday preppers in that sense. But there is, we have seen some times when we live in a hurricane zone. And it's very possible. Yeah, love you. Melissa's one of those people that's just a very dear, sweet, much loved soul. And she is, I think, one of the coolest features of this channel. She is the one responsible.
Show me the money!
For the coolest swoosh on the internet. So, yeah, we love you, Melissa. Look what happened in Western North Carolina and Tennessee. How many months has it been? You
when
just
was that, October?
Never can tell. And you may think the government will be there to help you. It completely and utterly failed. And
Ronald Reagan, the scariest words you can hear are, we're from the government, we're here to help.
Yeah. And if the tragedy is more widespread, you just can't necessarily count on others or the government to bail you out.
Mm-mm.
So that's why we have some of the stuff and information on homesteading, and we'll do that again soon. And talk about some of these things.
Yep.
It is good to be prepared, and it's great if you never need it. it's kind of enjoyable and pleasurable knowing you can do these things. It's, to me, fun to learn some of these skills and tricks and knowledge. So I think it's a cool thing, even if I never have to use it. Now, I go camping, so I use some of it here and there, which I enjoy being out, kind of primitive camping. Now, I was talking to somebody and they said their idea of camping is, a
Holiday Inn.
4-star hotel instead of a 5-star
Oh,
hotel.
oh, geez.
But their idea of roughing it, is a 4-star hotel versus a 5-star hotel. And there are some of those out there, but I enjoy basic, simple camping and the whippoorwills and watching the sunset and a cool summer's evening, looking up, counting the stars, seeing the Milky Way. So
Looking at
we
all of
just,
the Starlink
yep.
satellites and every other satellite out there.
So there's a certain piece there. All right, so gold is just blown up.
No, they won't make it.
Yeah. Those are the people that won't make it. Yeah, those are the 90%ers, which, it's not really, and I'm not really laughing if that happened, but 90% fatality rate. Can you imagine? Anyway. And there have always been times in the human endeavor where great tragedies have happened. It's almost like we're kind of overdue for one. We've had such a golden era, such an era of leisure and pleasure and relative peace. History shows that just.
Yeah, I think like a few boomers and most of Gen X will be fine. I'm just saying. We're like cockroaches as Gen Xers.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But back on gold.
Exactly. We're indestructible.
Gold is up 40% the last year. That's double the S&P's 22%. China is also buying gold. That doesn't look like it's going to stop. So that's unusual to see gold soar that much when stocks are also hitting highs. Normally, gold rises when there's upheaval or trade wars or inflation or real wars or defaults. None of that is happening yet. Melissa, we'll just make forts and amuse ourselves as usual.
Pretty much.
Now there's some, systemic risk out there that, we've talked about the U.S. borrowing $838 billion the first 4 months of fiscal 2025. The money supply grew at about 4% year over year, biggest increase since 22. Bond prices have been crushed, yields driven higher. So that's kind of an incentive for people to buy gold. But as strong as it is, there's something else going on behind the scenes. So just take that for what it's worth. Now, I mentioned inflation. This is something that just, pisses me off. I have ranted against the calculation of the inflation index, the CPI, and other indices.
Jeff.
Wife's experience is that gold is good for getting relatives out of re-education camps. That just sounds like a story there.
Yes, it does.
Re-education camps. Is your wife Chinese? I'm trying to think who's had re-education camps the past few decades.
I know they've been trying to get the conservatives into them.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. There's more to that story there. But inflation. This is a graph of the weights,
Think
the
Southeast Asia.
change in weights. Yeah, Southeast Asia. Okay. Change in weights of different components of the food index. One of the categories components in the CPI is food cost at home. And so that component includes the cost of cereals and bakery, meats, poultry, eggs, dairy and related, fruits and vegetables, non-alcoholic beverages, other food at home. So all of these are charted here from September of 24 to December of 24. And you can see the components maintain the same weights. But in January of 2025, you'll notice that meat, poultry, fish, and eggs was severely decreased its weight in the calculation. Non-alcoholic beverages severely decreased. You saw other food at home and cereals increase. So why this magic in this month? Why take eggs, the cost of eggs, and drop the weights dramatically? That's part
Because
of the
they've gone up tremendously.
that's part of the black box magic that the BLS uses in calculating the CPI that just I think's absolutely hokey.
That's
They will
insane.
play with these weights behind the scenes and not really explain it or tell you. This data is hard as hell to come by. It's not transparent.
How did you get it?
Uh,
Your magicalness.
my magicalness. Yeah, and I know
Gotcha.
some people who know some people who got the data and
Gotcha.
shared it with me. So it's just, when I sit here and talk about how these inflation indices oftentimes don't really represent reality, this is part of the reason why I am so disgusted with them. This kind of crap needs to stop. Now,
And Jane says because eggs are $8 a dozen.
yeah. And, probably not getting any cheaper for a while. The prior administration has culled over 1 million chickens. I believe it's 1 million chickens in the country the past 3-4 months.
Shut up. Seriously?
Yeah. Because
Okay,
of the quote unquote risk of avian bird flu.
Okay, see, I call that BS, by the way. I mean, I was in the hardware store this past week and checking out, I can't remember what I was getting. Anyway, that's not really important. The point is, it's behind this guy who's talking to the cashier about if her chickens had eggs. And she was like, yeah, we've got a few. And he said, well, I've got 25 chickens. He was like, and I had like half a dozen eggs. He said, so I bought 25 more chickens. And now I've got about 2 dozen eggs a day. And I'm like, I want your chickens. Can I have your chickens?
Yeah, and chickens in the winter will decrease production. They molt. That takes a lot of energy, so their egg production drops off some in the winter. The days are shorter.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it. But the biggest part of the problem is the Biden administration has made a number of large chicken farms cull their entire herd. I don't know how many of you remember during COVID, but there ended up being a lot of criticism coming out over the initial COVID test, who are using a method called PCR, invented by a biochemist named Mullen. And basically, the test can I'm trying to remember the exact information. I used to wax poetic on this.
Yes, you did. The more little pieces, they're looking for, like, you could have had something that's close to it or may carry something that's close to it, and it will pick up like you've got it, right?
Yeah, you may have such an infinitesimally small component that your
Mhm.
system's already broken down, attacked, destroyed. But the test, if it's set at a sensitivity level of 40, is it 40 parts per million or per 10? I forget exactly, but it's a very, very fine
Like
sensing
minutia.
level. Yeah,
Yeah.
extreme minutia that the test will show positive. But at that level, there is no chance you're carrying an active virus form or whatever. So the creator of the test, Kerry Mullins, argued vociferously that it should not be used to determine viral infection, that it was not suitable for that. But that's what it was being used for. And so you were getting a ton of false positives. In fact, probably the vast majority of positives were false positives because it was too sensitive to really accurately detect live virus.
What was it called? The cycle,
Yeah, the cycle threshold.
there you go. That's the word you're looking for.
Yeah. And if you set that to a really low level, you're almost always going to be guaranteed of a positive result. That's the problem. So you generate a ton of false positives. So you're treating people who aren't really contagious or infectious or infected.
Wait, is that why there was
They
absolutely zero
inhale
flu during
they
COVID?
inhale dead virus or remnants of a virus. Well, the test will pick that up and show it as a positive. And that's what's going on with the avian flu. They're using the exact same, the government, the FDA is using the same test to try to detect avian flu. It's like they wanted to have false positives so they could obliterate the chicken herd. They're trying to, we talked about the Great Reset and how you
Mhm.
will eat less meat.
So
Well,
they're
they
trying to make it
can't put in
happen.
an order and tell people they can't eat meat. But what they can do is regulate it to the point where it's harder to produce. You drive farmers out of business. This past year, we lost 140,000 farms. Farmers got
Damn.
out of the business. So you've got lower meat production. Chickens, they start to go to work on chickens, able to cull the herd by a million before they get thrown out of office. So that's what's driving the price of meat, what drove the price of meat up so much, and that's what's driving price of chicken and chicken eggs up so much.
Is there really an avian flu, or is that just complete bullshit?
It's there is, but it's not that big of a risk. Normally if it infects a herd, the farmer might lose a fifth, a third of the chickens. The other chickens build up an immunity to it. You lose a week's worth of production. I don't know exactly,
So they
but you still
lose
got,
like $500,000 and they still keep their farms.
yeah, and they've still got their chickens. They're able to
Mhm.
resume production much, much quicker. And in all likelihood, there wasn't real flu or an issue in the herd because the test was set so sensitive. You would find something if you test a chicken. So, and if you have one chicken that shows positive, they're making them cull the whole herd in every building, even though the chickens are isolated, building to
I
building.
I gotta find that guy. There is a chicken farm about 3 miles down the street or the road. I call it a road. I don't call it a street. Might have to go find me some chickens.
Well, I look forward to the
And
day when I can do it as well.
the chickens might have to come before I build a pen for Calliope. I don't know. We'll have to see.
um,
Oh, this is my favorite. I love this. What you're about to talk about?
Social what?
The show
Most
what?
people have most people have seen or heard the report by Doge on the ages of Social Security registrants.
I'm a pause right there. Most people have heard that Doge is going after your Social Security. That is the news line, the tagline. I'm not sure if they've seen the numbers.
Oh, come on now.
What? Look.
Well, I've got the whole graph. I mean, you sent me the whole graph. I was going to click
Yeah.
it open, but this is the part that's really the most entertaining.
It is.
This column is the age of the registrant. These are the number of people that have a Social Security number between the age of 100 and 109.
That are alive.
Down at the bottom is the number of people between the age of 360 and 369 that have a Social Security number, which is
that are alive. That are living.
well, yeah, that are alive.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of interesting because Social Security began in 1930.
So I really want to know these people who were who actually lived before it was a country. I really want to meet this human.
Yeah. Or how many, 220-year-old people do we have? 200-year-olds. And supposedly we've got 4.7 million who are 100 years old.
209.
Now, if you look at the actual recipient data, there's 87,000 people in the country over 87. I'm sorry, over 100 or 100 and over. Well, the Social Security has 4.7 million registered.
And the oldest U.S. citizen is 114.
So instead of 3.6 million, this number ought to be a little smaller.
You think? No one in America lives that long. That's true.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But look at all of them.
1.3 million at 150. So there's some bugs in the system.
I want to know how many of them are getting payments.
Yeah, that's really kind of the next question.
Mm-hmm.
And,
because they're saying a lot of them are actually people who live overseas who are in not so good organizations.
Yeah, that could be. And, a lot of it, fair amount, some of it may be fraud. Some of it may just be bad bookkeeping. Don't know. But we need a better system.
Bad bookkeeping. Yeah.
Yeah, the system needs fixing. There's just too much opportunity for corruption and crap in here. Too much can be hidden.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking what? Let's see. 10, 14, 17, 50, 18. I mean, 18 million people.
Oh, that's over 100?
Yeah. Over 119. Or over 109, excuse me.
Yeah. Because you got 7, 11.
That's 10.
14
and that's 7,
and a half, right. 16.
Maybe.
Yeah, you got about 17, 18 million.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that 100 to 109, if there's only 87,000, then a huge number of those are incorrect.
Yeah. And some people were saying, oh, that's just a programming glitch in COBOL because it's some sort of 150-year setback. But the thing is, you've got people in all ranges. It just doesn't have a 150-year jump. Mm-mm. So if it was due to that particular feature in COBOL, you wouldn't be getting numbers in the 4 million and 130, 3.5 million, 140. You wouldn't be getting these numbers.
Mm-mm.
So it's
I like how
that's
it drops
not
off.
It. People have tried to pass that off as just some people don't understand COBOL. Well, the ones who are arguing that haven't looked at the data and don't understand COBOL. This is just bad data.
Shit in, shit out.
Yep. Gotta go.
Mhm.
Now, looking at a few other announcements that have occurred of interest in the past day or two, Trump held another press conference today, which he's held more press conferences this week than Biden did his whole term. Trump is just meeting with the press almost multiple times a day. He apparently loves it. But news came out today, per USDA, the Department of Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, that Trump had told her he is, quote, looking into banning China's ownership of American farmland.
Thank God.
So, yeah, and curiously, a lot of the farmland they own is very close to major U.S. bases. Kind of a nice little coincidence there.
A ginormous amount.
Yeah, the
That was
Chinese
on
won't
purpose?
allow Americans to own land in China. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Now, I don't know, give them a year, 2 years, 3 years to sell it all. I'm not sure, exactly what the plan is, but we ought to probably hear something before long.
I don't really believe in coincidences. So I don't think they just bought it and happened to be near military bases.
Yeah, I doubt that. But we'll see. Also, you've been reading how the administration has been cutting off a lot of funds to NGOs, non-government organizations, as they are referred to. And, I started thinking about some of these, saw this particular headline. Boston nonprofit lays off 1,100 due to Trump administration foreign aid cuts. That's an NGO. Well, if an NGO can't operate without government money, it's a GO. It is a de facto government organization. So, let's kind of drop the imprimatur of some sort of charitable notion or whatever. This is just a, political outreach arm of the particular party funding it.
How can they call it a nonprofit? Clearly they're profiting.
Yeah.
Somebody is.
It's like a lot of hospitals are nonprofit, quote unquote. That just means they don't have to pay taxes.
Oh, yes, of course.
So if you can declare your work is for charitable purposes, which is funny, nonprofit hospitals aren't any cheaper than for-profit hospitals. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, if you're in it for charity, shouldn't you be donating more time, money, effort, whatever? Shouldn't your
No, you just don't
people
pay taxes.
probably be getting paid a little less?
You think?
Anyway. We need probably to revamp the whole tax system, but that's a topic for another day.
I'd say the whole government, but whatever.
Yeah. So, when NGOs can't support their activities without taxpayer dollars, they're GOs. And, Trump today during his conference, he kind of added to the hilarity. He pointed out some of the funding being stopped. And we talked about some things like this a little earlier in the show, but some of the other things he threw out were $19 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal.
Heard that one. Oh my God.
1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. What
Who
is
cares?
voter confidence? That's
Who
nothing but a
cares?
kickback to somebody.
Yeah. I don't
14
care how
million for
confident.
social cohesion in Mali.
Don't care.
That's a kickback to somebody. 47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia.
Hang on. I thought their outcomes were already better than ours.
They're kicking our students' ass in learning outcomes.
So why are we paying them money?
Dunno. Here's a good one. 10 million towards circumcision in Mozambique.
Shut up. Seriously.
Just not much I can say to that one.
I'm pretty sure in Mozambique they just do it the old-fashioned way.
I don't even want to know. I just really don't even want to know. I really don't care. 25 million for biodiversity in Colombia. I mean,
What
you're
is
right there next to the Amazon
biodiversity?
jungle, the most biodiverse region in the world, and we're paying them for it.
What is biodiversity exactly?
You know, you have you offer inclusion for different types of biological entities, make sure that they have equal opportunity, equal outcomes,
Ah.
make sure that they feel included, that they have safe spaces.
Okay.
It's just line item after line item after line item. Already talked about how Doge found 4.7 trillion in unaccounted for spending that they couldn't trace. Medicare 2.7 trillion, Pentagon 2.5 trillion. Social Security sends out 100 billion every year to people with no identity. Not sure how that works.
But $8 a carton for eggs.
Yeah. And keep in mind, all of this discovery is only in the first 3 weeks. We're just 3 weeks into this.
We're just scratching the surface.
Yeah. And once we start tracking where some of the money is real difficult to track went, we're going to find some pretty damn interesting things, I think.
Yep.
Also, Trump today asked where all the money in Ukraine went. He stated he estimates we have given around $350 billion. Now, Zelensky was on the air talking 2 weeks ago, and he said they had only received about $75 billion.
I don't trust a damn thing Zelensky says.
Well, I think he was, probably being right. I think a lot of the money has probably been skimmed off, eaten up in quote unquote overhead. You're paying off some of the oligarchs who are then contributing back some of the money to some of their favorite politicians, whatever, taking care of the big man, whatever. So, the way most foreign aid works is a lot of it's paid in kickbacks and bribes and grafts for
That is not
access.
what the American people pay for.
No, but those are things that, remember, the Democrats opposed auditing the Ukraine spending for 2 years. Well, I think now finally we're going to start seeing some of it audited and try to figure out where it all went. We'll see. I'm not saying it's definitely all paid paid in kickbacks and bribes and grafts. That's just my impression. But when, one country is saying we supplied 350 billion and the recipient is saying, well, we only got 75 billion, I'd like to have that difference reconciled.
No
I'd like to
kidding.
know what's what. So we'll see. Now, I saw this come out. The BOA keeps track of these different, what they call bearish indicators, signals. It's like Conference Board consumer confidence, less than 110. Sell side indicator, sell signals triggered. S&P 500 long-term growth expectations, 5-year Z-score. 10-year Z-score of trailing PE, low P. So you've got some kind of weird technical calculations. But the thing is, in history, when 5 or 6 of them pop up, normally that's when the market hits its high and it drops from there. So BOA released this today. Over the last 6 months, you can see, in September of 24, there were only 4. There were only 3 here, 4, 4, 5. This month, it hit 6. So when, the average of the market peaking is when 7 of these hit. Kind of a weird but interesting indicator that the market may be getting close to being at a peak.
Sorry. I had a bug issue. I had to call the exterminator.
Mahoney?
No, roommate. I was like, can you please bring the salt gun in here and kill this thing on the ceiling before it gets to me?
Oh, that's funny. All right. So, talking about a weird market, an unusual market, people are like, hey, it's doing great. It hit an all-time high. There's no guarantee that it won't keep getting stupider. The old adage is the market can be stupid a whole lot longer than you can be solvent. But when you start having so many signs and wonders and struggles in the economy and indicators turning bearish, it's like at some point in time, it breaks. It breaks. So there's no perfect timing knowing when it will, but that's just for your information. Again, I'm not offering anybody specific investment advice, just sharing information. Looking at some other things in the economy, autos, for example, auto loan defaults are popping. The serious delinquency rate, 90 days or longer, hit 3% in Q4, which is the highest in 14 years. The only higher rate is during the subprime crisis. Delinquencies and the COVID recession.
You froze.
That's kind of a significant number. Not only that, but the number of U.S. individuals holding multiple jobs has never been bigger. Multiple job holders hit 8.8 million in January. So as a share of employment, this number has reached the highest again since the subprime crisis. People are having to work multiple jobs to make ends meet. And that number keeps growing. That's not a sign we are in a recession. It's a sign we've been in a recession. White collar jobs, professional and business service jobs has lost 248,000 jobs since May of 23. Jobs in the sector have contracted for 17 straight months, marking the longest streak since 2008. Now, this is the change in jobs. So if it's below this line, it's still a negative change. Now, the negative change is less, but it's still negative. Okay. So the hiring rate dropped 30% just in December alone. White collar jobs are just vaporizing. The levels are lower now than during COVID, the pandemic. And, such weakness like that, it only occurs during pretty significant economic downturns. The labor market is and has been softening. So that's a few numbers on the market, the economy, just for you to be aware of, consider that may help you make better investment decisions. It's not specific investment advice, But those are numbers that I think are interesting and relatively significant, giving some indicator of what's going on in the economy at large. So there you go. So E-Train is now bug safe. Here, let me turn your mic back on. Try it again. It won't turn off.
Found the right screen there. No, no, it was crawling towards me, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "I need the bug to go away."
That's funny. Well, hope you're safe.
I am safe from the bug. That is for sure.
Where was Mahoney? She's usually a good bug getter.
She's on the chair sleeping on the big beanbag thing.
Okay, not earning her keep yet.
She's not, but it's on the ceiling. I mean, it's kind of high up there. I don't know how she's going to jump up and grab it.
She's got skills.
She has skills, but I just figured before it got here and y'all saw me completely freak out, it'd be better if it was just gone.
It's fine. All right. Anybody have any questions, comments? I kind of hogged most of the evening, which, I teach, so
He's used
I'm
to
used to
talking.
hearing the sound of my own voice.
Yes, you are.
It's such a lovely voice.
It is.
But that aside, do y'all have any questions or comments? Anything that we covered that you'd like me to clarify, restate, obliterate?
Moffat. Is it going to get worse before it gets better?
Yeah, I believe that's a very real possibility. And particularly with a lot of the turmoil in government, seriously, it looks like Trump's cutting 2 or maybe 300,000 jobs.
They are all getting 8 months severance, though.
Yes. Those are high-paying jobs. Housing prices in D.C. have already dropped 25% in a month.
I heard something about that today where it's like, even like yesterday, I know we covered it Saturday, but yesterday there were even more little red little things about all the houses for sale
popping up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be more added to the market as more and more people get these notices.
Which will bring the prices down even more.
About a large corporation who sent out notices, telling its workers that they had to come back into the office. Well, a lot of the workers moved out of town. And their kids are in new schools in, different parts of the country. And so they're really bucking. And so what does the company do? Does it fire them and just go with all new workers with no experience? It has nobody to mentor the young new hires. Does it allow them to continue to work from where they are and get lower performance and, no personal contact, no development of younger people, no oversight of younger people? It's just not a sustainable model for most companies where experience and expertise counts. You really don't get experience and expertise working from home.
You know what I find ironic is that the DC area has the most expensive homes in like per capita in the area, concentrated, than probably most anywhere else.
Yeah.
At least close. What does DC produce? What do they make?
Yeah, not a damn thing. Regulations.
Interesting.
4 of the 10 richest counties in the U.S., the entire U.S., surround DC.
Go figure.
Yeah. And you know who's paying for all that? Well, the times are changing.
American taxpayer.
Possibly. We're not far down the road in that process, so we can't declare, success or victory or what the results are yet. But
sure would be nice. Outlook is good.
Yeah, there's still a lot of fighting going on, so we'll see what the fruits are. And we really won't be able to judge the results for a couple of years. Like I say, with all the turmoil and all, there's going to be a fair amount of confusion. And in 9 months, those paychecks stop. So, if those people don't find other jobs, and for a lot of them, that have been working with the government, what kind of opportunity for other jobs are they going to have?
Well, here's my thought about it. If they try to get unemployment or disability and our veterans can't get it and they can, I'm going to have a serious issue.
Yeah. I don't think most of them will be able to file for disability.
They'll try.
Unemployment gives you a couple $100 a week. I'm not sure what it is.
As long as you're looking for another job.
Yeah, but it's going to be hard to make that $1 million house payment off of a couple $100 a week.
Oh, I'm not saying they're going to be able to stay where they are. I'm just,
Yeah.
they better be selling and moving somewhere they can afford. And their
So,
kids are going to come out of private school. They're going to have to actually deal with the educational crisis that they created.
yep. Which, yay.
Yeah.
Stupid should
Good.
hurt.
Yeah. If you don't care what happens to the masses if your kids are being taken care of and your family's fine because you're living in a multi-million-dollar house and you're,
That
everything's
always
good. You can
struck me
afford
as
your
odd
eggs.
with some of these quote unquote proponents of public education putting their kids in private school.
Yeah.
And not in public school. That always struck me as a little odd. So
I would
we'll
love to
see.
know how many Department of Education, the people who run it, how many of their kids go to public school.
In the upper echelons, I'd be willing to
Mhm.
bet the vast majority.
Go to public school?
No, private school. Or in private school.
Yeah. I mean, what does that tell you?
But that would be
Good for
interesting data to
thee.
see.
Yeah. Good for thee, but not for me.
So anybody else have anything?
I don't
We
see
are
Sean.
we
My
are
God,
just about out of time with our normal time. So I know Ellen needs to go throw ball for Chunk.
I do. He still thinks that he can reach it. It's about
He got
8 feet in the air.
He got a new ball today, so he's been happy as a pig in mud.
Yeah, Clay sent new balls for Chunk. So he's been, and I had to just him and the ball and me outside. And he had a field day. He was just the happiest little chunk he could be. I
He
sent
is.
Clay a video of it because he was just, and then he would chase it and bring it back and squeak, squeak, all the good things. But he was so darn happy. That's a
Yeah, and
happy chunk.
when Chunk is happy, everybody else is happy. It's just the way it works. He's just contagious.
You got to smile
Yeah.
because he's just a goofball.
Like I say, he has got such a big personality for such a little dog.
He heard me. He's standing outside the office gate. Yes, you're talking about me? Yes, dear.
All right.
I'm coming.
Well, y'all, appreciate you joining us tonight. We enjoyed being with you. We appreciate your support. If you will, please, on your way out, if you haven't already, do the YouTubey, the Xy, the Rumbly things, and hit that like button, please, if you will. It really helps us out.
Cost you nothing.
Go ring the bell, so to speak. If you haven't subscribed, then hit that button as well. And if you have any questions or comments you'd like us to cover on future shows, just email me, moffatonmoney@gmail.com, or DM me on X. Moffat on Money. We'll be glad. We do what we can to try to answer questions, written or oral. and any ideas that you may have or topics you're interested in us covering. We thank y'all for being with us tonight. Thank you for your time. Our time is up. Good night, y'all.
Love you
Blessings
guys.
to you. Love you guys.
Good night.